Hello everyone, my name is Jack Doherty from Liffey Mills. I'm joined here with Dermot Murphy from Germinal, and we're going to speak to you today about the red clover silage mix here that we have planted in this field in Dunamore in County Laois. This field was harvested for spring barley last autumn and was immediately reseeded afterwards with red clover silage mix. This is a non-grazing scenario in this field, and Dermot is just going to go through a couple of benefits of red clover and why this farmer is reaping the benefits from sowing red clover grass silage mix in this field. So maybe go ahead, Dermot.
Thank you, Jack, for your introduction. I suppose the principal benefit of a red clover silage sward is its ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen, so allowing you to reduce your imported nitrogen. A red clover sward can fix up to 250 kilos of nitrogen per hectare per year. So as I say, this reduces your reliance on bought-in fertilizer. The other advantage, I suppose, it's excellent in terms of its ability to improve your soil structure. It has a deep taproot which penetrates down into the roots of or deep into the soil, improving drainage and generation. It's also very good for improving your soil fertility. And I suppose from a feed value point of view, it's excellent. The protein of a red clover silage sward is far superior than a regular silage sward, and also the protein in the red clover sward, its bypass protein, means that it's undegraded in the rumen, ends up being degraded further down the digestional tract. Therefore, the animals get more bang from their buck from this red clover. It's excellent.
So there's a huge saving, first of all, from nitrogen on this. But what other nutrients does this plant need then to survive and to thrive in this sort of zero grazing scenario then?
I suppose just there's one thing that people that often ring us up and say they want to trial red clover because they can cut down on fertilizer. That is a bit of a myth. The only thing that you can cut down in terms of a red clover sward is the nitrogen. You still have to apply the P, you still have to apply the K. They say that this P and K should be front loaded, and that we should apply 3 kgs of P and 25 kgs of K for every tonne of dry matter you're hoping to produce. And as I say, this should be front loaded, so that the plant, it's luxury uptake from the plant's point of view.
And say for someone that is using it for zero grazing or for silage cutting, what sort of management do they have to do differently, say, from your regular grass only silage system?
So most people would be hoping to take their first cut of silage from a red clover sward, maybe the 15th, maybe the 20th of May. They'd be hoping to take a second cut of silage, 6 to 7 weeks later. A third cut of silage, another maybe 6 to 7 weeks later. And then maybe a last cut, which will be later in the year. A lot of people, because it is later in the year, that in order to get the sufficient wilt, that might not be possible at that time of year. So a lot of people would take 3 cuts of silage and then zero graze on the last time. They say that it's crucial to get 36 to 48 hours of a wilt, and if that's not possible due to weather, that we should use an inoculant or an additive.
Yeah. So Dermot, there's obviously plenty of grass here as well that complements the red clover here. What varieties has the farmer picked here, and why has he used them?
Okay, well, first and foremost, we went with intermediate perennial varieties. We use perennials as opposed to hybrids because we believe, number one, they're better quality, and number two, your perennials will align themselves in terms of the growth pattern a lot better with your red clover. The varieties in question, we used Aberclyde, which is your leading intermediate tetraploid. We also use Bar Wave and Aberwolf, which is another intermediate tetraploid and intermediate diploid. And both Bar Wave and Aberwolf, have the highest scores on the Teagasc PPI for their silage figures. So that is the reason that we went with those 3 varieties, as we believe that was the best possible mix we could put together.
Absolutely. Okay, Dermot, you've said that it takes 3 kilos of P and 25 kilos of K per tonne of dry matter actually taken off the field. In real money for farmers, say on a per acre basis, what would that roughly work out at units?
It works out 300 units of K, Jack, and 36 units of P per acre per year. And as I say, this ideally should be front loaded, should be put on beforehand, as that results in luxury uptake from the crop's point of view, and it just makes the life a little bit easier for the red clover.
You talk about 3 cuts of silage off it, and then you talk about zero grazing at the very end. Why is it so important to take that final zero grazing at the very end of the year to the whole system of it?
Well, to say that, first and foremost, Jack, to say that zero grazing is preferred option as opposed to grazing, because it's a red clover sward and has a large amount of red clover, it's not possible to graze this with animals, with livestock. Also, they could graze it too aggressively, and that would affect the persistency of the red clover. So they say that we should zero graze this in order to remove the herbage from it, so that it's not carrying a cover over the winter. And then when that zero graze grass is fed bred to livestock, bloat should not be an issue, or it's a lot less of an issue, because the animals can't preferentially pick the red clover. They have to eat the red clover plus grass, therefore reducing the risk of bloat.
Very good. And just maybe to bring it back to soil fertility again, we've obviously spoke about the P and K elements of growing a crop like this, but in terms of the pH of the soil, does that have to vary any differently to regular grassland, or what's the situation with red clover?
Ideally, to say the pH for red clover should be 7. Now, reality is that's not the case in too many cases. We'd certainly be recommending 6.3, 6.5 above that. If you can keep it above that, we wouldn't be advising to go out and try to get your pH to 7, because that's a disadvantage from a grass point of view, but certainly above 6.5 would be ideal.
Would be the sweet spot. Very good. This year the Irish government have announced an incentive for red clover. Just maybe 1 or 2 bits of information maybe on that, if you have it.
Yeah, essentially what they got, there's an incentive there for up to 300 euros a hectare, what they got it for a red clover silage sward or multi-species sward. This equates to